The groom slept with her sister, and the maid of honor hid it. The wedding is in 2 weeks. The sentence echoed in the back of Ava's mind like a bell that refused to stop ringing, and it matched the exact energy of the room she'd just stepped into. The rehearsal dinner hall was glowing with warm candlelight, soft music, clinking glasses. The kind of setting where people assume love is safe, families are united, and everything is exactly what it seems. But tonight, none of that was true. Ava stood in the doorway, frozen. Her hands trembled slightly against the fabric of her dress, and the air felt colder around her than it should have. Guests murmured, smiling, unaware of the storm that had been building quietly, a storm only she could see coming. Across the room, Haley, her sister, laughed loudly at a table full of bridesmaids, like someone who believed the world adored her without consequence. Her curled dark blonde hair bounced as she tossed her head back, and she looked effortlessly radiant, the kind of girl who could ruin a life and still get complimented for her lipstick. And right beside her sat Rachel, Ava's maid of honor. Her supposed protector. Her supposed backbone. Her supposed best friend. Rachel caught sight of Ava first. Her smile cracked. Just slightly, but enough. She nudged Haley under the table. Haley turned. And for the first time in years, Ava watched her sister's expression fall from smug confidence to something sharp, defensive, cornered. Haley mouthed something to Rachel. Rachel shook her head. Their eyes darted between Ava and each other. Anyone watching would have thought it was casual conversation. But Ava knew better. She could practically feel the secret pulsing between them, the one they had buried under layers of hairspray, dress fittings, and fake loyalty. 2 weeks before her wedding. That's when everything exploded. And now the explosion had finally arrived in public. A soft violin melody floated through the air, but it felt warped and wrong. The room was warm, but her skin felt cold. She could hear laughter, but it sounded distant, foggy, like someone had turned down the brightness on the world. Then she saw him. Liam. Her fiancé. The man everyone adored. The man she once believed was incapable of hurting her. He stood near the head table, adjusting his cufflinks, looking polished, put together, perfectly composed, like someone rehearsing how to be the perfect husband in front of an audience. His eyes lifted. They met hers. His smile appeared instantly, then stalled. Just for a millisecond. Just enough to reveal a fracture beneath the surface. Ava swallowed hard, her throat tight. She walked deeper into the room. Every step felt heavy. Sound faded. Faces blurred. Her stomach twisted, not just from betrayal, but from the horrible realization that she still didn't know the full truth. Not yet. A server brushed past her with champagne flutes. The bubbles fizzed loudly, almost taunting. Someone laughed near the dessert table. A child ran between chairs. All normal scenes. All painfully ordinary. The contrast made everything worse. She stopped a few feet from Liam, close enough to smell the familiar cologne she once adored. "Hey," he said quietly, voice warm, rehearsed. "You look beautiful." She didn't respond. He noticed. A crease formed between his eyebrows, the same crease he made when he knew he was in trouble but was already planning a way out. "Ava," he whispered. "What's wrong?" Before she could answer, Haley's voice sliced through the air behind her. "Ava." Forced enthusiasm. Forced brightness. Forced sisterhood. Ava didn't turn. She didn't need to, she could feel her sister's panic like static in the air. Then came Rachel's steps. Calm. Controlled. Too controlled. "Ava," Rachel murmured, "can we talk privately for a second?" Guests were starting to notice. Heads turned subtly. Conversation slowed. The room sensed tension, the kind that didn't belong at a rehearsal dinner but was suddenly impossible to ignore. Ava inhaled deeply. It burned. The three of them, the sister who betrayed her, the maid of honor who hid it, and the man who lied, were now standing within arm's reach. A perfect triangle of deceit. And this time, Ava wasn't the last one to know what was happening. She was the first. She lifted her chin, eyes steady, voice controlled. "No," she said. "We're not going anywhere." Rachel's face strained. Haley's hand twitched at her side. Liam's posture stiffened, the polished fiancé mask slipping. Someone near the bar gasped softly. A bartender froze mid-pour. Even the violinist faltered on a note. And in that exact moment, you could feel it, the shift. The silent collapse of the story they'd all spent months building. Ava wasn't the confused fiancé anymore. She wasn't the naive sister. She wasn't the friend everyone could reassure into silence. She was the woman who finally knew everything. And whether they were ready or not, the truth was about to surface. But to understand how she ended up here, standing in the middle of her own rehearsal dinner, staring at three people who had shattered her, we need to go back to the beginning. Before the rehearsal dinner, before the whispers, before the truth bled into the room like spilled ink, there was just Ava. A woman who believed, genuinely, wholeheartedly, that her life was finally settling onto safe ground. Her days back then were quieter, predictable, almost charmingly ordinary. She liked routine. The same corner table at the coffee shop near her building, the same playlist on her morning commute, the same habit of brushing her hair twice before leaving the house. Structure keeps me sane, she once told Rachel with a soft laugh. And she meant it. Because Ava wasn't the chaotic sister. She wasn't the dramatic one. She wasn't the one people described as intense, or magnetic, or always up to something. That was Haley. Ava was steady. At least, she tried to be. She worked as an assistant curator at a small, but charming modern art gallery. Nothing glamorous, just quiet halls filled with canvases and soft-footed visitors. She loved the silence. She loved the stories hiding in brushstrokes. And she loved the way art reminded her that broken things could still be beautiful. Her coworkers adored her. Her boss trusted her completely. Her clients found her honesty refreshing. People liked Ava because she made them feel safe. But here's the thing no one really talks about. Women who make others feel safe often forget to protect themselves. And Ava was guilty of that. More than anyone realized. It was a Thursday, very close to closing time at the gallery. Most lights were dimmed. The soft echo of footsteps traveled between the walls, and a rainstorm drummed outside like a patient rhythm. A tall man with a charcoal umbrella stepped inside, shaking off raindrops, apologizing to the front desk for arriving so close to closing. That was Liam. The kind of man who carried himself like he always arrived right on time, even when he didn't. Ava approached him softly. "Hi, we're closing in 10 minutes, she said, voice warm but formal. He turned and smiled. A gentle, slow, disarming smile. The kind that could lower anyone's guard without trying too hard. "I won't take long," he murmured. "I just needed a quiet place to breathe." Ava believed him instantly. Of course she did. And honestly, if you had seen the way the rain clung to his dark hair, the way his clothes looked freshly pressed despite the downpour, the way his eyes softened when they met hers, you would have believed him too. He wasn't perfect. But he was convincing. They talked for 5 minutes. 5 minutes that somehow stretched into something that felt like fate to her, though fate rarely enters quietly. Before he left, he asked if she had a favorite piece in the gallery. She walked him to a small painting in the corner, a soft abstract swirl of gold, navy and white. "It feels hopeful," she said quietly. Liam nodded, studying the art, then studying her. "Hope looks good on you," he replied. A line like that should have felt rehearsed. But Ava wasn't used to attention like that, so she let it melt right into her chest. And that's how it began. Not with fireworks. Not with a dramatic declaration. Just a quiet moment between a lonely woman and a charming stranger who knew exactly how to speak softly. Rachel noticed first. "He's really smooth," Rachel said one night as they walked home with takeout containers. Ava smiled. "Is that bad?" "That depends," Rachel replied, pushing hair behind her ear. "Sometimes the smooth ones slip through your fingers before you even realize it." Ava laughed. "You're overthinking." Spoiler, she wasn't. Then came Haley's reaction. Her younger sister took one look at Liam and raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Wow," Haley muttered. "He's kind of your level up." Ava blushed, flustered. "Stop." Haley didn't. Haley never stopped. Ava didn't know then that her sister wasn't admiring Liam, she was remembering him. Or rather, remembering something he didn't know Ava was aware of. But at the time, Ava interpreted Haley's comment as teasing. Harmless sibling stuff. She didn't know that Haley's eyes lingered too long. Or that Rachel's silence meant more than just discomfort. Everything looked normal. Everything sounded normal. But nothing was normal at all. Here's the truth. Ava wasn't naive. She was lonely. Not desperately lonely, just the kind of lonely that comes from always being the dependable one, the quiet one, the one who listens, but rarely gets listened to. Liam filled that space effortlessly. He remembered details. He texted good morning. He asked about her day. He showed up on time. He made her feel chosen. Ava had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. She had no reason to question the sister she trusted. She had no reason to check if Rachel was hiding anything. She was loved, or she believed she was. And at that time, that belief was enough. But every story like this has a moment when the first hairline crack appears. For Ava, that moment was coming soon. Very soon. And it would change everything. In the beginning, nothing felt dangerous. Ava and Liam were still in that early glow, the phase where every message feels sweet, where every small gesture feels meaningful, and where flaws look more like quirks than warnings. But even in those first weeks, certain moments lingered a little too long. Moments she later replayed in her mind, wishing she had paid attention. One of them happened on their third date. They were sitting at a small Mediterranean restaurant, the kind where you can hear the couple at the next table whispering. Ava was laughing at something Liam had said when he suddenly paused, swirling his drink slowly. "You know," he said casually, "I think I met someone you know, before I met you." Ava blinked. "Really? Who?" He shrugged lightly. "Not sure. Someone from your circle?" It was nothing. Just a small world thing. She smiled at the idea. Coincidences happen all the time. And Liam sounded so relaxed, so unbothered. How could she imagine that this someone was her own sister? She didn't press him. She didn't ask for details. She didn't feel a reason to be suspicious. Not then. But the energy around her slowly shifted. Haley, for example, reacted strangely whenever Ava talked about Liam. She didn't tease her like she usually did. She didn't joke or poke fun. She just gave these small, lingering smiles, not warm, not supportive, but unsettled. That kind of smile that flickers too fast to decode. One afternoon, Ava showed Haley a photo Liam had sent of a lamp he'd bought for his apartment. Haley's brows lifted, her expression tightening for a split second. "That's his style," Haley murmured. Ava frowned. "You literally met him once. How do you know his style?" Haley hesitated. "I didn't mean it like that." "Forget it." Ava tried to shrug it off. Haley always made confusing comments. It didn't feel threatening. Just odd. Rachel, on the other hand, became quietly observant. Whenever Liam picked Ava up after work, Rachel watched them with a softened face, not exactly distrust, but concern. And after he left, she always asked questions. Not intrusive ones. Not dramatic ones. Just enough to unsettle the edges of Ava's certainty. Does he open up about his past? Does he tell you the truth easily? Does he make you feel like you can trust him? Ava always answered yes. And she meant it. Rachel never contradicted her. But her silence spoke for her. Things grew even stranger when Ava invited Liam to a small family dinner. She wanted them all to meet him. She wanted her family to see what she saw, a man who was steady, thoughtful, kind. Her mother adored him instantly, too instantly. "Oh, Ava, honey, what a catch," she whispered loudly enough for Haley to hear. Finally, someone serious. Ava felt embarrassed and flattered at the same time. Haley, however, barely touched her food. She kept her gaze down, shoulders stiff, jaw tight. And when Liam accidentally brushed her chair while taking his seat, Haley flinched, not dramatically, but just enough for Ava to notice. Rachel's fingers shook when she lifted her glass. She whispered something to Haley that Ava couldn't hear. It was a dinner full of things Ava didn't understand yet. Later, in the car, she asked Liam, "Did you think they were acting weird?" He chuckled softly. "Your family's intense. But I like it." And just like that, she let the moment pass. But the pressure around her didn't go away. Her mother kept sprinkling her usual comments. "You're not getting younger, sweetheart. Don't lose this one. He seems like the kind of man who commits. Ava wasn't insecure. But she was tired. Tired of starting over. Tired of guessing people's intentions. Tired of being the one who always waited for love to choose her. So she let things move faster than she normally would. And Haley began acting even more off. She spent more time getting ready before family dinners, wore slightly bolder makeup, and slipped away to take phone calls at odd times. One morning, Ava found her in the kitchen smiling at her phone. "What's that smile about?" Ava teased. Haley locked her screen instantly. "Nothing. Just a meme." It wasn't a meme. And Rachel stopped asking questions altogether, which was even worse. Her silence didn't feel like calm anymore. It felt like fear. Ava sensed that something was wrong, but when your life finally seems stable, you convince yourself it's just anxiety talking. She didn't know then that these tiny moments were pieces of a much bigger truth. A truth she wasn't ready to see. Not yet. And time was running out. For a long time, Ava thought the tension around her was just life. Work stress. Family quirks. Cold weather. Anything but what it really was. But real cracks don't stay small forever. One by one, they widen until something finally splits. And for Ava, the first real fracture came on a night that was supposed to feel comforting. She and Liam were curled on the couch, half watching a movie, half dozing off. It was peaceful, quiet, until her phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. "Are you alone?" Ava frowned. She didn't like the tone, urgent, sharp, not at all like her calm, soft-spoken friend. She typed back, "No. I'm with Liam. Everything okay?" Rachel didn't reply. She called instead. Ava slipped away into the kitchen, pressing the phone against her ear. "Rach? What's going on?" There was a pause. A breath. And then Rachel's voice, strained, quiet, scared. "Ava, I need to tell you something. But you're not going to like it." Ava leaned against the fridge, trying to steady her voice. "Tell me." "I think something happened between Liam and Haley." Ava blinked. The world didn't fall, but it tilted. Just enough to feel wrong. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. "I don't have proof," Rachel said quickly, but Haley's been acting strange. Nervous. Jumpy. And the way she reacts around Liam. Ava cut her off. "That's not proof of anything." Rachel exhaled shakily. "I know. That's why I didn't want to tell you. But I heard something a few nights ago. Haley on the phone." She was crying, and she said his name. Ava's heart punched against her ribs. "No," she murmured. "No, Rachel, that doesn't make sense." Rachel's voice softened. "I didn't want to believe it either." Ava hung up before she could say anything else. Not rudely, just overwhelmed. She stood there in the kitchen, gripping the counter with cold hands. Liam walked in a moment later, barefoot, sleepy-eyed, warm. "What's wrong?" She barely managed to smile. "Rachel. Just drama." He kissed her forehead gently. "She worries too much." Ava laughed weakly, letting herself melt into him. Because the alternative, that Rachel was right, wasn't something she could even let herself imagine. Not then. Not yet. The next fracture came from Haley herself. A week later, Ava was getting ready to leave for work when she found Haley in her bedroom doorway, looking pale and restless. "Hey," Ava said softly, "you okay?" Haley bit her lip, hesitating. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying for hours. "I need to talk to you," she whispered. Ava's stomach tightened. "About what?" Haley looked away. "About what?" "About who?" "About him." But instead of speaking, Haley folded her arms tightly, shook her head, and whispered, "Never mind." Then she walked out. Just like that. Ava didn't chase her. She didn't explode. She didn't beg for answers. Because something inside her, something small, fragile, terrified, already knew the answer. That was the part she wouldn't admit aloud. And then, the biggest crack of all. 2 weeks before the wedding. Ava was sorting guest cards at her dining table when she heard Haley and Rachel arguing in the hallway. Not loudly, but fiercely enough for the tension to tremble through the walls. "You have to tell her," Rachel hissed. "I can't," Haley snapped. "I won't. You owe her the truth." "No." Haley's voice cracked. "If she knows, everything will fall apart." Ava froze. Every breath in her body paused. Rachel noticed her shadow first. She fell silent instantly. Then Haley's eyes lifted, and the terror in her expression told Ava everything she needed to know. She stepped forward slowly, her voice steady but cold. "Tell me what?" Neither sister nor best friend spoke. Haley's hands shook. Rachel's eyes filled. The silence stretched so thin it was painful. Ava whispered again, "Tell me what?" And Haley broke first. "Ava, I messed up." Just 3 words. But they were enough to turn Ava's stomach upside down. She sat down before her legs could give out, staring at her sister, the girl she grew up with, fought with, laughed with, trusted. Liam's name hovered in the air between them. It didn't need to be spoken. Ava whispered, "What did you do?" Haley started crying, the kind of crying that comes from guilt, not heartbreak. Rachel closed her eyes, leaning against the wall as if she'd been holding this secret for months. And Ava? She sat perfectly still. Calm. Silent. Because when betrayal comes from the people closest to you, the body shuts down before the heart can react. And she hadn't even heard the full truth yet. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to feel like a warm hug before the storm of the wedding day. Soft lights, low music, clinking glasses, gentle laughter. That was the atmosphere Ava imagined for months. Something elegant. Something intimate. Something safe. But safety is an illusion that breaks quickly when the truth starts pushing through the cracks. Ava arrived early, as she always did. She wasn't the dramatic sister, the one who stormed into rooms or left people waiting. She preferred calm. She preferred order. She preferred knowing what she was walking into. And for the first 20 minutes, everything seemed fine. Guests took their seats, waiters poured champagne, a violinist tuned quietly in the corner. Rachel hovered beside Ava, smiling in that tight way that people do when they're trying not to panic. "You look beautiful," Rachel said, brushing a stray hair from Ava's shoulder. Ava smiled. "You okay?" "You're tense." Rachel swallowed hard. "Just making sure everything goes perfectly." That was the first sign. A small one. But no one hides tension well when they've been carrying a secret for weeks. Haley wasn't there yet. Liam wasn't either. Ava assumed they were running late, separately, like normal. What she didn't expect, what no one expected, was the way they finally walked in. Not side by side. Not as part of the celebration. But separately, with a distance between them that told a story Ava didn't want to hear. Haley came in first. Her makeup perfect. Dress flawless. Hair curled. But her eyes swollen, red, shimmering in a way that didn't match the rest of her. Liam stepped in seconds later. Not rushing toward Ava. Not smiling. Just frozen in place, scanning the room as if trying to calculate an escape route. Ava felt Rachel stiffen beside her. The violin stopped. 2 guests put down their drinks at the same time. Someone whispered, "Oh no," from the far corner. A room full of people who shouldn't know anything suddenly felt like they knew everything. Ava walked toward them slowly, the way someone walks toward a wound they already know will hurt to touch. "Where were you?" she asked softly, almost politely. Haley looked down. Liam inhaled sharply. Rachel stayed behind Ava, whispering, "Not here, please not here," but Ava didn't stop. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't dramatic. She was simply broken in slow motion. When Haley finally looked up, tears pooled instantly in her lashes. "Ava, please don't make me say it here." That sentence alone was enough. The floor didn't fall, but it shifted violently under her. "Say what?" Ava asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Haley didn't answer. She couldn't. It was Liam who stepped forward first. "Ava, let's go somewhere private." "No." The word was soft, not sharp. But the firmness in it made him stop cold. "Tell me here," Ava said. "Where everyone can hear you clearly." People tried, truly tried, to look away. But a room cannot unsee the moment someone's life starts cracking. Haley's voice broke before any words came out. "It was before you two got serious," she whispered. "It was a mistake. A stupid mistake." Ava blinked once. Then twice. Her hands trembled, just barely. "Before what?" she asked. Haley cried harder, covering her mouth with her hands. Liam stepped closer. But the worst moment wasn't the confession itself. It was the way he reacted. Haley doesn't need to be attacked like this, he snapped quietly. And that was it. Ava felt something inside her collapse, silently, like a building folding inward. He was defending Haley. Not her. Not the woman he was supposed to marry in 2 weeks. Not the woman he promised a future to. The room seemed to blur around the edges. Voices faded. Everything narrowed to the three of them, Ava, Haley, Liam, standing in the center like a shattered triangle. Ava steadied herself, forcing her voice to remain calm. So the rumors were true, she said. The late-night phone calls. The crying. The secrets. All of it. Haley sobbed harder. Rachel covered her mouth, tears pooling in her eyes. Liam whispered, "It didn't mean anything." Ava let out a breath that sounded like a heartbreak cracking open. "Then why?" she asked. "Do you look terrified right now?" Silence. Crushing, suffocating silence. A waiter froze mid-step. The violinist set down her bow. A full room swayed between pity and horror. Ava swallowed, blinking back tears that begged to spill. "I really hope," she whispered to Liam, "that whatever this was worth losing me." Then she turned around, no screaming, no scene, no chaos, just the quiet dignity of someone who has finally seen the truth clearly. She walked out of the room under hundreds of stunned eyes. Guests parted like the ocean. Some whispered her name. Some shook their heads. Some looked away, unable to bear the pain on her face. But Ava didn't stop. This was her breaking point. Her humiliation. Her collapse. And the first step toward the version of herself she had no idea she was about to become. Ava didn't cry until she reached the parking lot. Inside the hall, she'd been made of glass and steel, silent, contained, unbreakable in front of everyone. But the second the cold night air hit her face, the reality of what had just happened slammed into her. Her shoes clicked too loudly on the pavement. Her breath came out in short bursts. The string lights above the venue looked almost mocking, twinkling like nothing at all had gone wrong. She reached her car, leaned both hands on the roof, and finally let out a sound, not quite a sob, not quite a scream. Something in between. Something raw. Something only the dark heard. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First, "Ava, please." From Liam. Then, "Where are you?" From her mother. Then, a long, frantic chain of messages from Haley. Ava stared at the screen until all the words blurred. She didn't answer a single one. She unlocked the car, slid into the driver's seat, shut the door, and suddenly the silence inside the vehicle felt too loud. Her reflection in the window looked like a stranger, smeared mascara, wide eyes, a woman in a pretty dress who had just had her entire future ripped out of her hands. There was a knock on the passenger window. Ava jumped. Rachel. Her hair was messy now, her makeup streaked. She wasn't composed anymore. She opened the door without waiting for permission and slipped inside, breathing hard. "Ava," she whispered, "please don't drive yet." "You're shaking." "I'm fine," Ava lied, fingers clenched around the steering wheel. Rachel reached out, gently prying Ava's hands free. "You're not fine." There was no argument left in her. Ava let her hands fall onto her lap. Her body felt heavy, like she'd been filled with stone. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the faint thump of the music still playing inside, muffled by walls and distance. "I should have told you sooner," Rachel finally whispered. Ava didn't look at her. "You think?" The words came out flat, not sarcastic. Just exhausted. Rachel swallowed hard. "I tried to push Haley. I called you. I didn't handle it right. I was scared." "Scared of what?" Ava murmured, eyes still straight ahead. "Of losing her? Or of losing him?" Rachel closed her eyes. "Of losing you." That made Ava flinch. Because underneath the anger, buried deep, she knew it was at least partly true. "If I told you without proof," Rachel said softly, "you'd think I was trying to ruin your wedding. If I waited for them to confess, I risked exactly what just happened. I chose wrong. I know I did." Ava finally turned her head, eyes dull and red. "How long have you known?" Rachel hesitated just a beat too long. "Long enough to hate myself for it," she answered. It wasn't the clean answer Ava wanted, but it was truthful enough to hurt. A single tear slid down Ava's cheek. Then another. Her chest caved, and suddenly the tears wouldn't stop. She tried to wipe them away, but they kept coming, faster, harder, like everything she had held inside all evening had finally snapped free. Rachel reached over and wrapped her arms around her. Ava resisted for half a second, then broke. She cried into Rachel's shoulder, not polite, not quiet, not controlled. Not anymore. This was supposed to be safe, Ava choked. He was supposed to be safe. She was supposed to be safe. You were supposed to tell me. Rachel's own tears slid into Ava's hair. I know, she whispered. I know. And I'm not going to ask you to forgive me tonight. I just need you to know one thing. Ava pulled back slightly, eyes searching her face. Nothing about this, Rachel said slowly, means there's something wrong with you. Ava's lips trembled. Then why does it feel like I wasn't enough? Because they're cowards, Rachel answered, without hesitation now. That's all. Cowards make messes and call it complicated. You gave everything you had, and they used that to hide behind. That's not on you. The words didn't fix anything, but they landed somewhere deep. I can't go home, Ava whispered. I can't face my mother, I can't sleep in the same bed I shared with him, I can't. You're not going home, Rachel cut in. You're coming with me. Ava almost laughed. Your apartment is tiny. Rachel shrugged. So we'll be tiny and miserable together. At least you won't be alone. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a sweeping rescue. It was just real. Solid. And right now, that was the only kind of refuge Ava could handle. Rachel texted a quick message to Ava's mother from Ava's phone, nothing detailed, just, I'm safe. I need space. I'll talk tomorrow. She ignored Liam's calls. Ignored Haley's desperate texts. Put the phone face down in the cup holder. Seatbelt, she murmured as she took the keys gently from Ava's hand. You're not driving tonight. Ava didn't argue. They drove in silence through the city, streetlights slicing through the darkness, grocery stores closing, couples walking dogs, people living lives that weren't collapsing. Rachel's apartment was exactly as Ava remembered, small, cluttered, comfortable. A mismatched couch, shelves full of books, a plant that was somehow still alive despite Rachel constantly forgetting to water it. Rachel tossed Ava a clean, oversized t-shirt and a pair of soft shorts. You can have my bed, Rachel said. I'll take the couch. Ava shook her head immediately. No, I'm not kicking you out of your own bed. Rachel's eyes glinted with something between humor and sadness. Fine. Then we'll both sleep badly in the same bed and complain about it in the morning. Like college. For the first time that night, the corner of Ava's mouth twitched upward. They crawled into the small bed, lying on their backs, staring at the ceiling. Minutes passed. Do you think I'm stupid? Ava asked suddenly. Rachel turned her head sharply. Absolutely not. I missed everything, Ava whispered. Every sign. Every look. Every moment. I let them stand right in front of me and… You trusted them, Rachel cut in. That's not stupidity, Ava. That's who you are. And the right people will treat that like a gift, not an opportunity. The room went quiet again. You don't have to decide anything tonight, Rachel added. Not about the wedding, not about him, not about her. You're allowed to just exist. Breathe. Fall apart a little. Ava's eyes burned again, but no tears fell this time. She felt emptied out. What if I cancel? She murmured. What if I actually don't marry him? Rachel didn't hesitate for even a second. Then you'll be the bravest person in that entire room, she said. And everyone who truly loves you will know it. Ava let the words sink in. She imagined the dress, the flowers, the guests, the speeches, the version of her life she'd been rehearsing for months. Then she imagined herself walking into that ceremony knowing what she knew now. Her body recoiled at the thought. For the first time, the possibility of not going through with it didn't feel like disaster. It felt like survival. She exhaled slowly, as if releasing something. I don't know who I am without this wedding, she confessed quietly. But I think I need to find out. Rachel's voice softened to almost a whisper. Then that's what we do. One step at a time. I'll be here. No more secrets. No more half-truths. You ask, I answer. You fall, I catch. Deal? Ava turned her head, meeting her friend's eyes in the dim light. Deal, she said. It didn't erase the betrayal. It didn't fix what Rachel had done wrong. But that night, in that cramped bed in that small apartment, Ava wasn't a humiliated, almost bride in a crowded hall. She was just a woman whose life had cracked open. And who had, finally, someone willing to stand in the wreckage with her. And that, whether she realized it or not, was the first piece of her new foundation. The next morning was colder than it should have been. Not weather cold, Ava barely noticed the sky outside, but a kind of inner frost, the type that settles after a night where your world has imploded quietly into pieces. Rachel nudged her awake with a warm mug of tea. You don't have to get up yet, she whispered. But Ava did. She sat on the edge of the bed, hair messy, face swollen from crying, hands idle in her lap as if waiting for someone to give her permission to breathe differently. Rachel sat beside her. You ready to talk about what comes next? Ava nodded, small, fragile, but certain. I need answers, she murmured. Rachel exhaled with a mix of guilt and relief. Okay, then let's start. Rachel reached into her drawer and pulled out a small lavender notebook and her own phone. I wrote things down, she said. Moments I didn't understand, things Haley said, times she disappeared, and calls she made. Ava frowned. You kept notes? Rachel nodded. Because I wasn't sure. And you deserved certainty, not gossip. She unlocked her phone and scrolled for a while before handing it to Ava. Message logs. Screenshots. Snippets of call history. Haley's number. Liam's number. Times that overlapped. Times that didn't make sense. Ava felt her throat tighten, but she kept going, scrolling, reading, comparing. One night in particular. 1:12 a.m., Haley, can you talk? 1:13 a.m., Liam, I'm outside. Ava closed her eyes. She remembered that night. She had fallen asleep waiting for Liam to call after his late shift. She remembered waking up at 3 a.m. to see no messages. And she remembered telling herself he must have been exhausted. Looking back now, the memory felt poisoned. Rachel watched her carefully. There's more. Ava's hands shook as she turned each page of Rachel's lavender notebook. Small observations. Harmless on their own. Devastating when stitched together. Haley wore the same perfume Liam complimented. Liam looked nervous when he saw Haley wearing it. Haley said, I shouldn't be here on the phone. Liam bought groceries on a street nowhere near his home. None of it was explosive. None of it was cinematic. But real betrayal rarely is. It builds in whispers. In glances. In the doors people don't close all the way. Ava closed the notebook slowly. Why didn't you show me this earlier? Rachel looked at her hands, ashamed. Because evidence hurts, she whispered. And I wasn't sure if you wanted the truth or the illusion. Ava didn't respond. Because the truth was simple. She had wanted the illusion. At least until it shattered. After an hour of going through everything, Ava needed air. She stepped out onto Rachel's tiny balcony, leaning over the railing, letting the wind hit her face. The city hummed below, car horns, morning chatter, life continuing for people who weren't falling apart. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. A woman's voice replied, older, steady, strangely gentle. Is this Ava? Yes. My name is Dr. Malden. I'm Haley's therapist. Ava's breath stopped. I'm calling because your sister gave me permission weeks ago to reach out to you if things escalated. Ava's knees nearly buckled. What do you mean? There was a pause. A long one. Ava, the therapist said softly, you need to know this. Nothing is wrong with you. Ava's eyes stung instantly. The therapist continued, carefully, compassionately. Your sister is struggling with deep insecurity. She has a pattern of self-sabotage when she feels overshadowed by someone she loves. It doesn't excuse her actions, nothing excuses betrayal, but you must understand this clearly. Her choices are about her wounds, not your worth. Ava covered her mouth, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She told me, the therapist added gently, that hurting you is her biggest fear. And she's been drowning in that fear since it happened. She knows she destroyed your trust. She knows she might never get it back. And she's terrified. Ava didn't speak. She couldn't. Not yet. Take space, the therapist said softly. Take clarity. But don't take guilt. You don't own any part of this. When the call ended, Ava stood frozen, the wind hitting her face, her breath uneven, her heart pounding with something sharp and painful. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. But it was something new. Perspective. Ava turned toward the apartment, where Rachel stood watching her carefully, worry etched on her face. You okay? Rachel whispered. Ava wiped her cheeks. No, she answered. But I'm done blaming myself. And that quietly, powerfully, was the first real step forward. Ava didn't go home that day. She couldn't. Her apartment still smelled like Liam's cologne. His jacket was still hanging on the chair. His toothbrush still sat beside hers on the sink. And the thought of stepping into a space where she had loved him so completely made her chest feel tight. So she stayed at Rachel's, curled beneath a blanket on the guest bed that was too soft and too clean for the emotional wreckage inside her. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind replayed the same images. Haley's trembling hands. Liam's defensive stare. The way a room full of guests pretended not to listen while her heart cracked in front of them. By morning, Ava felt hollow. Not empty hollow. Like someone had scooped out the parts of her that were warm and replaced them with silence. Rachel knocked softly. Ava? Are you awake? Ava wasn't sure whether she answered or whether Rachel just sensed it. She sat on the edge of the bed, eyes swollen, her voice rough. I can't walk back into that apartment. Rachel nodded. You don't have to. Ava swallowed, tasting bitterness at the back of her throat. I need to get my things. Rachel didn't hesitate. I'll go with you. Ava almost said no out of habit, out of wanting to be the easy one, the low-maintenance one, the woman who never needed too much. But she didn't. Okay, she whispered. Please. They drove in silence. Sunday morning sunlight glowed across the buildings, but it felt wrong, too bright for the heaviness in Ava's chest. When they reached the apartment, Ava paused in the hallway, staring at the door she'd walked through 1,000 times. Rachel stood beside her. You ready? No, Ava inhaled shakily. But I'm going in anyway. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. The throw blanket she always folded was draped over the couch. A candle she'd lit 2 nights ago had melted into a neat pool. A grocery bag with ingredients for a dinner she'd planned still sat on the counter. Ava felt something twist painfully in her ribs. She grabbed a suitcase and began packing automatically clothes, toiletries, makeup, shoes. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She didn't pause. Stillness can be a kind of strength. But then she opened the nightstand drawer. Their drawer. Their shared space of little things, movie tickets, spare keys, receipts from dates, the tiny Polaroid he once said was his favorite picture of them. Ava stared at it. Her laughing. Liam kissing her cheek. Both of them glowing with a kind of happiness she now recognized as borrowed, because the person smiling beside her wasn't who she thought he was. Rachel approached quietly, watching her face. You don't have to keep anything, Rachel whispered. Ava nodded. But she didn't throw the Polaroid away. She slipped it into her suitcase, not out of longing, not out of weakness, but because some memories need to exist, just to remind you how far you've come. When they finished packing, Ava walked through the apartment one last time, touching nothing, taking nothing except her things and her dignity. She stood by the door and whispered to no one. This isn't my home anymore. As they stepped into the hallway, Liam's voice echoed from the elevator. Ava? Her spine stiffened instantly. Rachel tensed beside her. Liam stepped out wearing the same clothes from last night, hair disheveled, eyes swollen. He froze when he saw the suitcases. Ava, what are you doing? She didn't look away. I'm leaving. He moved toward her, panic rising. We can talk. We can fix this. Don't just walk out. Ava felt Rachel shift protectively closer. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She didn't cry. She simply said, I'm not leaving because of what happened between you and Haley. I'm leaving because you lied. Because you defended her. Because you made me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. Liam swallowed. It didn't mean anything. Then why did you hide it? She asked. Why didn't you tell me the truth before you asked me to marry you? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Ava shook her head. I'm done choosing people who don't choose me. She walked past him. Rachel followed. Liam didn't chase them. He couldn't. Because deep down, beneath all the excuses, beneath all the charm, beneath all the practiced apologies, he knew Ava wasn't coming back. As they reached the car, Rachel touched Ava's arm gently. Where do you want to go? Ava stared at the street, the people walking, the sunlight hitting the pavement. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel trapped. Somewhere quiet, she said. Somewhere I can breathe. Rachel nodded and started the car. But Ava leaned back, staring out the window as they pulled away from the life she thought she wanted. She wasn't healed. She wasn't whole. But she was moving. And sometimes, that's all a woman needs to begin again. Ava didn't move in with Rachel permanently. For a few days, it worked, sharing cereal in the mornings, sitting quietly on opposite ends of the couch at night, pretending the world wasn't still shifting beneath their feet. But as supportive as Rachel was, Ava could feel the weight she carried every time Rachel walked into the room. Exhaustion. Worry. Guilt she didn't deserve. Ava hated being someone else's burden. So one evening, while Rachel was organizing files for work and pretending she wasn't watching Ava too closely, Ava spoke softly. I think I need my own space. Rachel didn't argue. Didn't beg her to stay. Didn't guilt-trip her. She just nodded with swollen eyes. Okay, I'll help you look. They found a small sublet near the park, clean, quiet, nothing fancy, but full of air. Ava signed the papers the next day. Moving again felt strange, but different this time. This time she wasn't running. She was rebuilding. Her coworkers noticed the shift instantly. Ava stopped staying late at the gallery. Stopped apologizing for existing. Stopped filling silence with kindness just to make others comfortable. She felt sharper. Not colder, just awake. And that's when he appeared. It was a Thursday evening, right before closing, and Ava was arranging a new installation when the door chimed softly. She expected a late visitor. A tourist. A lost student. But instead, she saw a man in a navy jacket, tall, broad-shouldered, with warm brown skin and the kind of presence that filled the room without trying. He moved slowly, deliberately, like someone who didn't need to rush to be taken seriously. Ava recognized him vaguely. He had visited the gallery a few months earlier with a group of architecture students. She remembered because he asked thoughtful questions, the kind that linger in your mind after the conversation ends. But she had forgotten something important. His eyes. Deep, gentle, observant, the kind of eyes that could see past the version of yourself you were pretending to be. He approached carefully, not wanting to startle her. Hi, he said with a warm, steady tone. You helped me last time I was here. Ava blinked. I did. He smiled. You talked about the lighting in the sculpture wing. It stuck with me. She felt her cheeks warm. Oh, right. I remember. His name was Noah. He was an architectural photographer, the kind of person who traveled often, studied buildings like they were living creatures, and saw beauty where others saw structure. He wasn't charming in the practiced way Liam had been. He was quiet, thoughtful, grounded. And he didn't look at her the way men usually look at women they're interested in, with expectation, with hunger, with calculation. He looked at her like he was trying to understand her. What brings you back? Ava asked. Noah glanced at the new installation. I heard you were rehanging the featured collection. Thought I'd take a look before the crowds came. Ava nodded, leading him through the gallery, talking softly about materials, brushstrokes, composition. And Noah listened. Really listened. Not to impress her. Not to flirt. Not to perform. Just to understand. When they reached the final room, she exhaled slowly without realizing she'd been holding her breath. No one noticed. Long week, he asked gently. Ava almost laughed. Almost cried. Almost said everything. Instead, she said something like that. Noah didn't push. He just nodded like he knew better than to pry into wounds that were still bleeding. But as he turned to leave, he paused. I don't know what you're going through, he said quietly, but you look like someone trying very hard not to collapse. And for what it's worth, you're doing better than you think. His words hit her chest like a small, unexpected impact. Not painful. Not intrusive. Just true. Before she could respond, he continued. Sometimes people try so hard to hold themselves together that they forget they're allowed to fall apart a little. Ava's lips parted. Her throat tightened. How could a stranger see her so clearly? Noah smiled softly as he stepped back toward the door. If you ever want to talk or not talk, just walk around the gallery together. I'm usually nearby. My studio's 2 blocks away. Ava stared at him. Not romantically. Not with longing. Just with relief. Noah didn't feel like a new love. Not yet. He felt like oxygen in a room she hadn't realized was suffocating her. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She just whispered, "Thank you." Noah nodded once, then stepped out into the golden evening light. And as the gallery door closed softly behind him, Ava felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. A small shift. A fragile beginning. The quiet suggestion that life wasn't ending, it was rearranging. And for the first time since the rehearsal dinner, she allowed herself to breathe a little deeper. The days that followed didn't turn Ava into a stronger person overnight. Healing never looks like the movies, no sudden epiphany, no dramatic glow-up in a montage of cheerful music. Instead, it was slow, uneven. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Some mornings she woke up feeling lighter, as if she'd finally escaped a life that had been quietly crushing her. Other mornings she felt the weight of everything, the betrayal pressing down on her chest before she even sat up in bed. But she kept going. Her new apartment helped. It was small, but the walls were hers, the quiet was hers, and every piece of furniture she placed felt like reclaiming a piece of her autonomy. She worked longer hours at the gallery, but not out of avoidance this time. She poured herself into curation, color, texture, restoring pieces that needed attention. She found comfort in restoring what was damaged. It made her feel possible. A few weeks into her new routine, the gallery director approached her about leading a small exhibition. Not assisting. Not shadowing. Leading. She froze when he asked. Me? You've earned it, he said simply. Ava blinked hard to keep her eyes from swelling. Being chosen for something genuinely chosen hit deeper than she expected. She threw herself into the project. She'd leave the gallery after closing and work late at home, surrounded by sketches, notes, catalogs, and soft jazz playing from her laptop. And slowly, the world inside her got warmer again. She ate better, slept better, went for walks in the park with podcasts humming in her earbuds. She even started journaling, something Rachel had insisted she try. Pages filled with things she'd never said aloud. Not just pain, but boundaries, dreams, wishes she once considered too much. And sometimes, Noah appeared in the margins of her life. He'd stop by the gallery with coffee. He'd walk with her through new installations when the building was empty. He'd ask her how she was feeling, gently, without pressure, and never pushed for more than she offered. They weren't dating. They weren't anything labeled. Not yet. But he was consistent. And consistency was something she was relearning to trust. Meanwhile, the world around her shifted in subtle ways. People in her life began treating her differently, not with pity, but with respect. Her coworkers admired her resilience. Her mother stopped nagging and started listening. Even Haley stayed completely silent. Her sister sent a few texts, apologies, half-formed explanations, long paragraphs of guilt. Ava didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because responding meant reopening a door she wasn't ready to approach. And Liam didn't reach out at all. Not once. Oddly enough, that hurt less than she expected. Ava wasn't healed, not fully. Not even close, but she was building something sturdier than before. Her life wasn't small anymore. It wasn't centered around someone else's needs. It wasn't a story written by other people. It was hers. And for the first time in months, she genuinely believed she'd survive this. Then, fate, or something like it, intervened. Her boss handed her an invitation one morning. A joint event, he explained. Several galleries collaborating. Formal, upscale. Networking galore. I want you there representing us. Ava traced the gold lettering on the envelope. A gala. Big. Public. Full of people from her community. The kind of event Liam and Haley would absolutely attend. Her chest tightened. But she didn't say no. Because this time, she wasn't the one who needed to hide. The night of the gala arrived faster than Ava anticipated. She stood in front of the mirror in her small apartment, adjusting the sleek black dress she'd chosen, elegant, simple, nothing flashy. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves, her makeup subtle and polished. She looked different. Not like the version of herself from before the breakup. Not like the shattered version afterward. Someone new. Someone steadier. At the gallery entrance, she spotted Noah before he spotted her. He was photographing the venue's exterior, the way the lights spilled onto the sidewalk, the reflections on the tall glass doors. He looked peaceful, focused. Ava approached quietly. You came. Noah lowered his camera, smiling softly. I told you I'd be around. She laughed under her breath. I thought you meant near the gallery, not here. I go where the architecture is interesting, he said, tilting his head with a playful seriousness. And tonight, the architecture happens to include you. A flush of warmth rose in her chest. But he didn't push further. He never did. Inside, the room was full of art critics, collectors, curators, people who once intimidated her. Tonight, she moved among them with a confidence she didn't have before. Noah walked beside her, not hovering, not crowding her, just present. At one point, an investor asked her a technical question about an installation. A year ago, she would have deferred to someone more senior. Tonight, she answered clearly, decisively. Noah watched her speak, his eyes steady, impressed, but not surprised. When the conversation ended, he leaned in slightly. You shine when you talk about what you love. Ava smiled, shy, but real. They walked together through different exhibitions, pausing at sculptures, comparing interpretations, sharing small, quiet laughs. It wasn't romantic in the loud, dramatic sense. It was gentle. Safe. A different kind of beginning. Midway through the evening, Noah stepped aside to photograph a chandelier installation. Ava stayed back, watching him work, the precision in his posture, the care in his hands. She liked him. Not because he filled a void. Not because he distracted her. But because he saw her without needing anything from her. And for the first time since her life fell apart, Ava allowed herself to imagine the possibility of something new. Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday. Noah returned, slipping the camera strap onto his shoulder. You okay? He asked quietly. Ava nodded. Better than okay. He studied her for a second, then offered his arm, not as a claim, not as a gesture of possession, but as an invitation. She accepted. Maybe this wasn't a love story yet, but it was the seed of one. And all seeds needed was space, time, and the right hands. Ava was finally giving herself all three. What she didn't know not yet was that soon she'd be forced to stand face to face with the past she'd escaped. At a much bigger event. In front of far more people. With a truth none of them were ready for. But for now, she let herself breathe. A few months passed, and Ava's life began to feel less like a story shattered in half and more like a mosaic, broken pieces rearranged into something unexpectedly beautiful. Her exhibition opened to a larger audience than she ever imagined. People she didn't know complimented her eye for detail, her ability to curate emotion, her quiet but confident leadership. Her director beamed with pride all evening, introducing her to donors, collectors, and critics as if she were the brightest talent in the room. And for once, Ava didn't feel the need to shrink. She belonged there. She earned it. At the end of the night, one of the managing directors from a partner gallery approached her with a smile. You have a gift, he said simply. If you ever want to run your own program, call me. Her breath caught. Her own program. Her own team. A future built entirely on her merit, not on being someone's fiancé, someone's older sister, someone's emotional caretaker. Just Ava. She thanked him, and later, when she stepped outside into the cool evening air, she allowed herself a small, private smile. This was vindication, not the loud, cinematic kind, but the quiet realization that she was rising without the people who broke her. Noah showed up minutes later, having left early to photograph the city lights after sunset. He walked toward her with that steady, grounded energy of his. "How did it go?" he asked. Ava exhaled with a kind of disbelief. I think it went really well." Noah looked at her for a long moment, his eyes soft but certain. "It didn't go well," he said gently. "You made it go well." Her chest warmed at the words, not in a romantic way, not yet, but in the sense that someone finally recognized the work she put into rebuilding herself. They took a slow walk toward her apartment. He didn't hold her hand. He didn't rush. He didn't push her toward anything she wasn't ready for. He just stayed beside her. Some nights later, Ava sat at her tiny kitchen table, filling her journal with notes about the exhibition. She paused mid-sentence, noticing how different her handwriting looked now, steadier, more deliberate. Her phone buzzed. A notification from the gallery's website. Her exhibition had been featured in a well-known online art magazine, with her name in the headline. Her eyes stung. Not from sadness. From pride. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't about proving Liam wrong or Haley small. It was about proving to herself that she could grow in the ruins they left behind. But while Ava's life blossomed, theirs did not. People like Liam and Haley assume the world will keep protecting them, even after the damage they cause. They assume the glow will stay on them forever. They assume consequences are for other people. But consequences always come. Quietly at first. Then all at once. After Ava walked out of the rehearsal dinner, the story spread, discreetly but persistently. People in their social circle weren't stupid. They had eyes. They saw the tension. They saw Haley's panic. They saw Liam defend the wrong woman. At first, the whispers were soft. Then unavoidable. Haley tried to keep her life picture-perfect on the outside, flawless makeup, curated selfies, carefully edited captions about personal growth. But her facade cracked faster than she could patch it. Work became unbearable. A coworker overheard a conversation she didn't intend anyone else to hear, something about Liam not choosing her and how everything should have gone differently. Within days, the story circulated behind closed office doors. Suddenly, Haley wasn't radiant. She wasn't admired. She wasn't the charming, magnetic younger sister people gravitated toward. She was a cautionary tale. And Liam? He crumbled in a different way. His friends, the same ones who used to praise him for being such a catch, the dream fiancé, the kind of man women hope for, pulled away once they realized he had slept with his fiancé's sister. The ones who stayed didn't defend him. They pitted him. Which was worse. Liam tried moving on quickly, but no relationship stuck. The dates felt transactional. His charm, once effortless, now felt suspicious to the women he met. "You're not over something," one date told him bluntly before leaving the restaurant. He didn't tell her that he wasn't over someone. He wasn't over the life he destroyed. Haley tried to fix things with Rachel, but Rachel wanted nothing to do with her. After months of guilt, lies, and pressure, Rachel finally chose her own peace, and Haley wasn't part of it. As for Liam and Haley together, they didn't speak. Not really. Too much shame. Too much resentment. Too much truth sitting between them like a bruise they both refused to examine. Some people destroy their own future while thinking they're destroying someone else's. And both of them were learning that lesson the hard way. Their lives didn't collapse in dramatic explosions. They eroded. Friendships fading. Credibility slipping. Opportunities shrinking. Quiet nights spent thinking about the one person who deserved none of this. Ava. They didn't know it yet. But soon, they would all end up in the same room again. A room much larger than the rehearsal dinner. A room filled with even more eyes. A room where the truth wouldn't just surface, it would shatter the last illusions they were clinging to. And Ava? She wouldn't be walking in as the woman who collapsed under their betrayal. She'd be walking in as someone entirely new. Life has a way of bringing people into the same room at the exact moment they least want to be seen. For Ava, that moment arrived on a crisp Friday evening, nearly 8 months after the implosion of her wedding plans. The art world buzzed with anticipation for the city's annual Winter Gala, hosted at the historic Camden Museum. It wasn't just any event. It was the event, the kind where donors wore diamonds the size of thumbnails, where critics whispered in corners, where careers quietly shifted under chandeliers. Ava didn't plan to attend at first. She told herself she was too busy, too tired, too uninterested. But her director insisted. "You deserve to be there," he said. "And people should see your work. Your name is being mentioned in good rooms." So she went. Not as someone's plus one. Not as the anxious, careful girl who once walked on eggshells around her own life. But as a woman who had built something of her own. She arrived in a sleek black gown, elegant, understated, perfectly tailored. Her golden hair fell in soft waves, and the confidence in her posture made her look taller than she actually was. Noah walked beside her, not as a date, not officially, but as someone who had become quietly essential to her days. He wore a dark suit, simple but sharp, and together they looked like a picture framed in contrast, gold and bronze, light and earth, soft and steady. When they stepped into the lobby, a few heads turned. Not because Ava was loud or flashy, she never had been, but because she looked different. Self-assured. Centered. Whole. She spent the first hour greeting colleagues, viewing exhibitions, accepting compliments with a calm grace she never used to allow herself. But the world is small. Smaller than we think. And sometimes, painfully so. Because halfway through the evening, Ava heard a voice she hadn't heard since the night her life split in two. "Ava?" She turned. Liam stood a few feet away, older, tired around the edges, like someone living in a body that didn't fit him as well as it used to. His suit was perfectly pressed, but his confidence was not. He blinked, shocked to see her. Shocked by how she looked. Shocked by who she was standing beside. "Ava," he repeated, softer this time. "I didn't know you'd be here." She gave a polite nod, civil, detached. The kind of acknowledgement reserved for a stranger. Noah stepped subtly closer, not possessive, not territorial, just present. Liam noticed. A flicker of something crossed his face. Regret. Maybe longing. Maybe the bitter awareness that he had lost something he would never be offered again. Before Ava could respond, another voice cut through the air. "Ava?" This time softer. Guilt-strained. Uneven. "Haley." She looked fragile, nothing like the girl who once lived for attention. Her hair was pulled back in a simple style, her dress too formal for her usual taste, her expression a tangle of dread and nostalgia. Rachel hovered behind her, not close, not friendly, more like someone who had agreed to be in the same place, but not in the same life. Ava exhaled slowly. Of course they would all end up here. Fate had a sense of humor like that. Throughout the room, people began to glance over subtly, then less subtly. Not out of malice. Just curiosity. Some recognized the names. Some remembered the gossip. Some sensed the tension immediately. Ava wasn't rattled. Not this time. Because she wasn't the woman who once fell apart in front of them. She was the woman who had survived them. She lifted her chin, meeting each pair of eyes with calm steadiness. Liam. Haley. Rachel. 3 people who had rewritten her life without permission. 3 people who were about to hear the truth they'd spent 8 months avoiding. And as the crowd gently closed in around them, not to invade, but because humans are wired toward stories, Ava finally understood. This wasn't a coincidence. This was the moment she had been walking toward without realizing it. The moment her past and future collided under the same chandelier. And she was ready. For a second, just a second, no one moved. The 4 of them stood there in a charged silence that rippled outward, pulling attention like gravity. Conversations dimmed. Glasses stopped midair. Even the soft jazz humming through the speakers seemed to hush itself. Liam swallowed, his throat visibly tight. Haley twisted the strap of her clutch, blinking back the rise of emotion she didn't know how to hold. Rachel stared at the floor like she was bracing for impact. "Ava?" She breathed. Calm. Measured. Complete. Noah stayed slightly behind her, not in front, not beside, just close enough for her to feel supported without being overshadowed. Liam cleared his throat. "Ava, can we talk? Please." His voice was hopeful and hollow all at once. Like a man asking for a door he already knew was locked. Ava didn't answer with words. She just looked at him, really looked, and the weight of it made him shift uncomfortably. Haley spoke next, her voice trembling. Ava, I'm so sorry. For everything. I've tried, I've wanted, I didn't know how to. Ava raised a hand gently. Stop. The entire room went still. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. And that alone made people lean closer. I've heard enough apologies, she said softly. And none of them matter anymore. Haley's breath hitched. Liam's jaw tightened. Ava continued. I didn't come here for drama. I didn't even expect to see you. But since we're all standing here, there's something I need to say. Haley's eyes widened. Liam's shoulders tensed. Ava scanned their faces, first her sister, then her ex-fiancé, then Rachel, and for the first time in months, she felt no fear. No shame. No hesitation. Just truth. When you tore my life apart, I thought it was the end of me, she said. I thought I'd never breathe normally again. I thought I would break in ways that didn't heal. Haley started crying. Liam blinked fast, swallowing hard. But I was wrong. A small murmur passed through the crowd. I rebuilt myself. Piece by piece. Without your help. Without your explanations. Without your guilt. Without your presence. She paused. And I like who I've become. Silence. Heavy. Honest. Ava took one final breath. You don't get to take credit for my healing. You don't get to enter the life I rebuilt. And you don't get to rewrite what happened. Her gaze sharpened. You betrayed me. Both of you. And I survived it. Liam covered his mouth with one shaking hand. Haley was sobbing openly now. Ava wasn't finished. If there's anything to say tonight, it's this. You no longer have any power over me. Not my mind. Not my future. Not my peace. Every person around them felt the shift, the quiet, seismic kind that happens when someone finally closes the door that should have been shut months ago. Ava turned slightly, letting her eyes find Noah. His look was steady. Proud. Solid. Not claiming her. Not saving her. Just witnessing her. She looked back at the trio in front of her. I hope you both find a way to live with what you did, she said. And I hope, someday, you learn how to be better. Then she stepped away. Not fleeing. Not breaking. Not dragging pain with her. Just leaving. The crowd parted effortlessly, like they could sense she was stepping into a different chapter, one that didn't include the people behind her. And for the first time since everything collapsed, Ava felt free. The air outside the museum was cool, almost crisp, the kind of cold that wakes you up, even after the longest night of your life. Ava stepped onto the marble steps and let the doors swing shut behind her. The muffled noise of the gala faded instantly, replaced by the soft hum of cars in the distance and the quiet rustle of winter leaves. She closed her eyes for a moment. Not to cry, not to collapse, but to breathe. Because the weight she'd carried for months, the betrayal, the humiliation, the unanswered questions, had finally loosened its grip on her ribs. It didn't vanish. But it shifted, settling somewhere behind her instead of on top of her. Footsteps approached. Noah. He didn't rush her. He didn't speak immediately. He simply walked down 2 steps and stood beside her, offering quiet company instead of solutions. You handled that beautifully, he said softly. Ava let out a long exhale. I didn't plan any of it. I know, he said. And that's what made it real. She looked at him, really looked, and noticed things she hadn't allowed herself to before. The steadiness in his eyes. The warmth in his expression. The kind of man who didn't try to fix her past, only make sure her present felt safe. I didn't think I'd feel anything like peace tonight, she admitted. That's because you said the things you should have said months ago, Noah replied. You gave the truth a place to land. A shiver ran down her arms, not from cold, but from release. From the strange, beautiful relief that comes after speaking words you once feared would destroy you. Ava turned slightly, watching her own reflection in the museum's tall glass windows. She didn't look like the woman who had been abandoned in front of a room full of people. She didn't look like the fiancé who had been lied to. She didn't look like the sister who had been betrayed. She looked like herself, the version she had fought hard to become. Noah nudged her shoulder gently. Want to get out of here? There's a diner nearby that makes terrible tea but incredible waffles. She laughed, a real one, the kind that shook loose the last pieces of tension hiding in her chest. That sounds perfect. Before they left, she took one last glance at the museum doors. Inside, somewhere beyond the glass, her past lingered like fading perfume. Liam, probably replaying the moment in his mind. Haley, wiping her tears and realizing apologies would never be enough. Rachel, silently relieved that Ava finally said what needed to be said. None of them followed her out. None of them tried to drag her back. Because some endings don't need to be dramatic. Some endings simply need to be final. Ava walked down the stairs, her heels clicking softly, Noah matching her pace easily. And with each step, she felt it more clearly. She wasn't running away anymore. She wasn't healing in secret. She wasn't living in the shadow of what happened. She was walking toward something new. Someone new. A life that belonged fully, finally, to her. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like enough. Looking back, Ava realized something she wished she'd understood much earlier. Some betrayals don't destroy you, they unfold you. They peel back the quiet parts of your life you've kept hidden, the pieces you've ignored, the truths you didn't want to confront. And once they're exposed, you're left with a choice. Break. Or rebuild. Ava rebuilt. Not because it was easy. Not because she felt strong every day. But because she finally understood that her worth never depended on the people who failed her. She learned that love without loyalty is just decoration, pretty on the outside, empty on the inside. She learned that silence in the face of betrayal protects no one except the liar. She learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who must be loved from a distance. But most importantly, she learned this. Healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. I'm still here. I'm still growing. I'm still mine. Her story wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishing Haley or exposing Liam. It wasn't even about getting an apology. It was about choosing herself. Choosing peace. Choosing truth. Choosing a future that wasn't built on someone else's dishonesty. And when she finally walked away, really walked away, she didn't look back with bitterness. She looked back with clarity. Because the moment she stopped chasing explanations, the moment she stopped carrying guilt that wasn't hers, the moment she stopped begging people to treat her better, her life began. If there's a lesson in Ava's story, it's this. You don't lose people when the truth comes out. You lose people who were never meant to stay. And sometimes, that's the most loving thing life can do for you. If you want more wedding drama, family secrets, and stories that make you whisper, "No way," hit subscribe. Bridal Confessions has many more secrets to tell.